Imagine a machine that draws as much electricity as a mid-sized American city.
Right, which is just hard to even picture.
Yeah, it really is. And it costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $180 billion to build, requires millions of specialized microchips communicating at the speed of light. And its immediate task today is figuring out how to categorize a receipt in your inbox. Welcome to the deep dive. You know, we all know artificial intelligence is moving fast, but when you look behind the curtain, that whole idea of a weightless, invisible cloud, it just vanishes completely.
It's a very persistent illusion, isn't it? Like,
Mm.
we are so conditioned to think of our digital lives as having zero physical footprint.
Oh, totally. We just assume it's out there in the ether.
Yeah, but the reality is that the modern AI ecosystem is the absolute definition of heavy industry. I mean, it is steel, it is silicon, and it requires staggering amounts of electricity.
It really does. So today, we are taking a massive stack of sources. We've got official announcements from Google and Blackstone, detailed tech reporting from the Times of India, and on-the-ground legal coverage from Fox Business and The Guardian.
A really wide range of data today.
Yeah, and our mission is to connect the dots for you. Because whether you are an investor watching the markets, a developer building the next big app, or, you know, just someone trying to figure out why your phone is suddenly anticipating your schedule, you really need to understand the mechanics of this chain reaction.
It affects everybody at this point.
Exactly. So we're tracking the physical infrastructure being built right now, the futuristic software it enables, and the high-stakes courtroom drama over who actually controls the trillion-dollar spoils. Okay. Let's unpack this by starting with the physics. Because before we can talk about flashing new AI agents, we have to talk about the engine room.
Right, the actual hardware.
Yes. Google's capital expenditure is jumping to somewhere between $180 and $190 billion this year alone. That is roughly 6 times what they spent just 4 years ago in 2022.
To put that into perspective, you could fund the entire Apollo space program, adjusted for inflation, and still have tens of billions left over.
That is, wow, just an insane amount of money.
It is, and that money is primarily going toward custom silicon and the sprawling data centers required to house it. We had to look at the chips themselves. Google recently announced their 8th generation tensor processing units, or TPUs. But for the first time, they've actually split the architecture into 2 distinct branches, the TPU-8T and the TPU-8i.
Yeah, I noticed that split in the reporting. But why divide the hardware? Like, a chip is a chip, isn't it? Why not just make one incredibly fast processor?
Well, because training an AI and talking to an AI are 2 entirely different mathematical problems.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the TPU-AT is optimized for large-scale pre-training. Think of pre-training like reading every book in human history simultaneously to build a fundamental understanding of the world.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right. And that requires massive memory bandwidth and the ability to process mountains of data in parallel. It packs nearly 3 times the raw compute power of the last generation. But the TPU-8i, on the other hand, is built for inference.
And inference is the actual chat part, right?
Exactly. Inference is when you ask the AI a question and it generates an answer. You don't need it to read the whole library again. You need it to sprint to the right shelf and hand you the book immediately. So the 8i is designed specifically to eliminate latency.
Okay, so they're building 2 different specialized engines. And the scale of this deployment is just astronomical. I mean, the sources mention that Google is distributing training across 1 million TPUs globally using this infrastructure called JAX and pathways. Now, I consider myself pretty tech literate, but how do you even coordinate 1 million separate chips across, like, different continents to work on a single problem without them bottlenecking each other?
That is exactly the hurdle that JAX and pathways were built to solve. Because historically, if you link too many chips together, the network traffic jam between them just slowed everything down.
Like trying to get 1 million people to talk at once.
Exactly. The chips spent more time waiting for data from their neighbors than actually calculating anything. So Pathways acts as a sort of master conductor. It manages the flow of data dynamically, so that a cluster of TPUs in Iowa can seamlessly calculate alongside a cluster in Finland operating as a single unified global supercomputer.
And what that supercomputer is doing is processing over 3.2 quadrillion tokens a month, which, just to ground that term for you, a token isn't exactly a word.
Right, it's smaller than that.
Yeah, it's more like a fragment or a syllable that the AI uses as its basic unit of thought. So processing 3.2 quadrillion of those a month is essentially ingesting the entire written output of the internet every few hours.
Which is precisely why capital alone can't build these platforms anymore. You need physical land, specialized cooling systems, and massive energy grids. This is fundamentally an infrastructure play, which brings us to a wildly unexpected partnership.
Yes, Blackstone. This is where I have to pause because it feels like a glitch in the matrix. I mean, Blackstone is the world's largest alternative asset manager.
Yeah, they're not a tech startup.
Not at all. They are famous for private equity, buying up real estate, corporate buyouts, and yet they are committing an initial $5 billion in equity to create a new US-based TPU cloud company in a joint venture with Google. Why is a massive private equity firm suddenly pouring billions into computer chips?
It signals a fundamental shift in global economics. AI compute is no longer just a tech product. It has become a definitive hard asset class, much like real estate or logistics.
Oh, so they see like owning a warehouse or an apartment building.
Yeah. Exactly. Blackstone already manages over $1.3 trillion in assets, and they quietly became the largest global provider of data centers over the last few years. By partnering with Google, they are bringing 500 megawatts of capacity online in 2027. They even brought in Benjamin Traynor-Sloss, a legendary Google infrastructure veteran, to lead the whole operation.
Wait, 500 megawatts? Just to visualize that, a typical nuclear reactor produces maybe 1,000 megawatts. They are building half a nuclear plant's worth of pure data processing.
Precisely. And the business model here is compute as a service. Blackstone and Google are democratizing access to the hardware.
Right.
Instead of a top-tier AI startup or a high-frequency trading firm having to raise their own $180 billion to build a data center, they could just rent this unprecedented power.
They are laying down the physical railroad tracks for the AI economy. But that astronomical hardware investment isn't just a flex. It is the fuel required for the massive software explosion we just saw at Google I/O 2026.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we have officially graduated from the era of simple chatbots, we are now entering what Google is calling the agentic era.
And the engine powering this transition is Gemini 3.5 Flash. This is their new default model, and it represents a massive breakthrough in operational efficiency.
Yeah, the stats on it are crazy.
It outperforms older models on complex reasoning, but the crucial metric is that it is 4 times faster at less than half the cost.
Okay, but how does that even work mechanically? Because usually in technology, you have to choose between speed, quality, and cost. You rarely get all three simultaneously.
It comes down to a technique called mixture of experts. Instead of activating the entire massive neural network for every single prompt, which is hugely expensive, the AI essentially routes your request to a specialized subnetwork.
Like a specific department.
Exactly. An expert in code or language or math. It only uses the computing power necessary for that specific task. That efficiency is why the financial projections are so staggering. The sources note that if large enterprises shifted just 80% of their workloads to Gemini 3.5 Flash, they could save over $1 billion annually in compute costs.
And Google is clearly eating its own cooking here. They are using 3.5 Flash to power Anti-Gravity 2.0, which is their internal agent orchestration platform, processing 3 trillion tokens a day internally.
Yeah, that scale is hard to grasp.
And there was a detail from the I/O conference that I just loved. A developer used anti-gravity to build a custom functional operating system from scratch just to run the classic video game Doom.
Right, a very entertaining demonstration. But look at the mechanism behind it. The AI didn't just write a line of code, it planned a multi-step architecture, executed it, tested it, and deployed it. That leap from generating text to orchestrating actions is what makes Gemini Spark possible.
Gemini Spark, yes. This is the announcement that really stopped me in my tracks. It is a 247 personal agent. It runs natively on virtual machines in the cloud, meaning it is working for you even when your laptop is closed and powered down in your bag.
Always on.
Always on. The keynote showed it monitoring credit card statements to catch sneaky subscription charges and independently planning a neighborhood block party complete with RSVP tracking in Google Sheets. But I have to push back hard here.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know if I actually want this. If Spark is running 24/7, reading my financial statements, scanning my personal emails, and interacting with my calendar, aren't we essentially handing over the absolute keys to our digital life? The privacy implications seem terrifying.
Well, your hesitation is exactly the friction point the entire industry is currently fighting over. What's fascinating here is the difference between having a super smart dictionary that finishes your sentences and hiring a personal assistant.
Right.
If the dictionary gives you a bad word, you just hit backspace. But if an autonomous assistant accidentally wires $500 to a scammer or sends an inappropriate email to your boss, the consequences are severe. That's the massive trust leap we are being asked to make. You are no longer the driver of your software. You are becoming the manager.
And managing an AI requires visibility. How does it even securely access my bank to check those subscriptions in the first place?
Through a protocol called MCP, or the Model Context Protocol.
Yeah.
Think of MCP as a highly secure, universal translator. In the past, if you wanted an AI to read your bank data, you practically had to give it your password.
Which nobody wants to do.
Exactly. MCP changes that. It allows the AI to query your bank's API or your calendar in a strictly limited, scoped way. The AI can read the statement, but the protocol physically prevents it from altering the account or stealing the underlying credentials. Furthermore, Google hard-coded a fail-safe anything involving spending actual money or sending a communication to another human triggers a manual confirmation prompt on your phone.
So they are building in deliberate friction to keep us in the loop.
Yeah, they have to.
That explains the new interface shifts, like Android Halo, that subtle UI layer sitting at the top of your screen just to show you what Spark is doing in the background. And the Daily Brief, which is literally a morning digest summarizing what your AI accomplished while you were asleep. It's wild to think we now need status reports from our phones.
Transparency is the only way to bridge that trust gap. But agents working in the background is really only half the story. The way we physically interact with the digital world is undergoing a radical transformation thanks to multimodal models.
Yes. Let's talk about Gemini Omni and Omni Flash. This is the new model that natively understands text, image, audio, and video all at once. And the specific demo they showed with the bubble sculpture, it completely blew my mind.
It was a masterclass in latent space rendering.
Okay, explain that, because on the surface, it looked like magic. The presenter had a video of a person walking past a solid metal sculpture in a park. Using conversational editing, the user just pointed at the sculpture and said, "Make it out of bubbles." And instantly, the metal vanished and became a delicate cluster of bubbles. But the person walking past didn't glitch. The lighting was perfect, and you could see the environment refracting through the transparent bubbles. How is that different from just slapping a Snapchat filter over a video?
Well, a standard filter is two-dimensional. It just pastes pixels over a specific area, frame by frame. What Gemini Omni is doing is fundamentally different. It doesn't translate the video into text descriptions and then back into video. It processes the visual data natively in a multidimensional latent space.
So it actually understands the space it's looking at.
It literally maps the 3D physics of the scene. It understands object permanence, so it knows the sculpture exists even when the person walks in front of it. And when you ask for bubbles, it calculates how natural sunlight would refract through a spherical, transparent surface in that specific park environment. It is calculating real-world physics on the fly.
That is just incredible, and that deep understanding is bleeding into everything. Look at the voice upgrades. Docs Live allows you to just pace around your office, verbally brain-dumping half-formed ideas, and the AI formats it into a coherent, structured document in real time.
Yeah, that's going to change workflows everywhere.
For sure. Or Ask YouTube, where you can ask a highly specific question like, how do I teach a 3-year-old to pedal a bike without training wheels? And instead of giving you a list of 10-minute videos, the AI drops you into the exact 7-second clip that answers your question.
Or the universal cart, which watches what you shop for across Search, YouTube, and Gmail. If you're building a custom PC and you put a motherboard in your cart that is incompatible with the processor you picked earlier, the AI intercepts the mistake and suggests the correct part.
Wow.
It doesn't just hold your items, it comprehends them.
But the most futuristic moment for me was the intelligent eyewear coming this fall. A presenter on stage ordered a nitro cold brew through DoorDash, entirely hands-free. She didn't unlock a phone or look at a screen. She just spoke conversationally to her audio classes. But here's the reality check.
There's always a catch, right?
Yeah, this all sounds like science fiction, but it comes at a steep premium. I saw that the AI Ultra plan, which actually unlocks these 247 agents and complex video models, is now $100 a month.
And that brings us full circle right back to our first segment. You aren't just paying for slick software. You are paying for the industrial reality of a 500 megawatt TPU data center.
Right.
The compute power required to calculate the light refraction of a bubble in a video or to monitor your email 24/7 is immense. That $100 a month tier is the direct downstream consumer cost of a $180 billion infrastructure budget.
Which also explains why they are pushing SynthIO so aggressively. If reality is this easy to edit, if you can alter physics in real time, natively knowing what is actually real, it becomes a crisis. Google is expanding SynthID watermarking into Search and Chrome.
SynthID is critical because it doesn't just attach a tag to the metadata of an image. which can be easily stripped off by bad actors.
Yeah, metadata is too fragile.
Exactly. It embeds the watermark at the pixel level for images and into the audio waveform for voice. It's invisible to the human eye or ear, but permanently detectable by the software. And importantly, it's not just a Google initiative. OpenAI, Kakao, and 11 Labs have all adopted Synthin.
That cross-industry adoption is huge.
It is. As reality becomes entirely malleable, transparent digital watermarking is the only technical defense we have to maintain a shared information ecosystem.
Okay, let's connect these pieces. We've established that it takes billions of dollars and massive physical infrastructure to make this AI magic happen. And that astronomical price tag is exactly what just blew up the biggest philosophical debate in Silicon Valley. Can you actually build this technology as a nonprofit charity, or does the sheer crushing cost force you to become a ruthless corporation?
That is the trillion-dollar question.
Literally, and that exact question just put Elon Musk and Sam Altman in a federal courtroom.
It is the ultimate collision between the founding ideals of artificial intelligence and the brutal financial realities of building it.
Now, to be clear, we are looking at this entirely impartially. We aren't taking sides in a billionaire feud. We are looking at the mechanics of the trial based on the reporting. So Elon Musk sued OpenAI, Sam Altman, and Greg Brockman, seeking their removal and demanding a staggering $150 billion in damages.
A massive figure.
Yeah. His core argument was that by spinning up a for-profit entity to attract investment, they betrayed OpenAI's founding charter, which was to develop AI purely as a nonprofit for the benefit of humanity.
The trial took place in a federal court in Oakland, California, and the outcome was swift. After 11 days of testimony, the jury deliberated for less than 2 hours.
Less than 2 hours. A 2-hour deliberation for a $150 billion lawsuit is virtually unheard of.
It's incredibly fast.
But the reason they came back so fast is fascinating. It didn't hinge on some grand philosophical debate about the soul of humanity. The jury unanimously found that Musk's claims simply exceeded the 3-year statute of limitations. The evidence showed that Musk knew about the plans for a for-profit structure as early as 2017.
Right, he was part of those early conversations.
He was actively involved in those structural discussions before he ultimately left the board in 2018.
And naturally, the legal teams immediately went to war in the press. Musk's lawyer claimed they succeeded in exposing Altman's deceptions, basically framing the loss as a mere procedural technicality. Meanwhile, OpenAI's lawyer fired back, stating the jury found Musk's claims to be stories, not facts.
But hold on, I have to challenge this outcome. If Musk lost solely because the clock ran out on the statute of limitations, doesn't that mean his underlying point about AI safety and the danger of abandoning the charity model was entirely sidestepped? Like, the jury didn't say he was wrong about the danger, they just said he sued too late.
You are absolutely right. The trial successfully navigated around the messy existential questions of AI safety, global governance, and labor displacement. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, Sarah Krebs, the director of the Tech Policy Institute at Cornell University, offered a very pragmatic view on this.
What did she say?
She pointed out that frontier AI, the cutting-edge models that actually push the boundaries of science, cannot be sustained on a nonprofit model.
Right.
You cannot run a 500-megawatt TPU data center on charitable donations.
Wow. Yeah, that's a fair point.
The moment OpenAI realized in 2017 that achieving artificial general intelligence would require hundreds of billions of dollars in compute, the pure nonprofit dream was mathematically dead.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. You can't bake sale your way to a $180 billion supercomputer. So what does this all mean for the market? Because it seems like the floodgates just opened for the biggest financial moves in tech history.
Well, the verdict gave OpenAI a massive, bulletproof legal stamp of approval for its corporate structure. The uncertainty that was terrifying investors has evaporated overnight.
And the immediate result is that OpenAI is now reportedly clearing the decks to pursue an initial public offering later this year. Wall Street is expecting a valuation of $1 trillion.
Which is astronomical.
And Musk isn't exactly backing away either. His mega corporation combining SpaceX, the Starlink satellite network, and his own xAI company is reportedly planning a massive IPO of its own in June. It feels like we just watched two Leviathans settle a legal dispute just so they could prepare for the ultimate financial showdown.
The profound irony of this situation is hard to overstate. A high-profile lawsuit that was ostensibly launched to preserve a nonprofit charity and protect humanity from corporate greed has, in the end, legally immunized OpenAI to pursue a $1 trillion public offering.
Yeah, that irony is pretty thick.
What this verdict ensures is that commercial momentum, massive capital expenditure, and intense corporate rivalry will dictate the future of artificial intelligence. The industry is ruled on a highly capitalized oligopoly, and they now have a legal green light to accelerate as fast as their data centers will allow.
Okay, let's take a breath and look at the whole board. We started by exploring the sheer physical mass of the modern cloud Blackstone and Google, pouring billions into JAX-orchestrated TPU networks that require small power plants to operate.
Yep.
We saw how that physical hardware enables Gemini 3.5 Flash to power the agentic era, where autonomous assistants manage our lives, intercept our emails, and map real-world physics in latent space, all for a $100 monthly premium.
It all connects.
And we traced how the staggering cost of all that compute forced the industry to abandon its nonprofit origins, culminating in a 2-hour jury verdict that just crowned corporate enterprise as the undisputed king of AI.
It is a remarkable chain reaction. Every breakthrough in software right now is directly tethered to an explosion in hardware, which is entirely dependent on the flow of massive capital.
Which leaves you with one final thought to ponder as we wrap up today's deep dive. We are rapidly entering an era where AI agents can execute tasks for us 24 hours a day, while trillion-dollar corporations wage war for absolute dominance over the physical grids that power them. But looking at the sheer scale of the money involved, are we actually the ultimate beneficiaries of this miraculous technology, or are we simply the data points generating the subscription revenue needed to keep those massive servers humming?
That is the defining question of the next decade, and I think we are going to find out the answer very soon.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the rapid changes around you, and we'll see you next time. Global Tech Daily is an AI-powered synthesis.